Okay, now we got that taken care of. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 57 of my GEMP game review series. I am your host, Chris Goglin. Let's make sure we get some Twitch promotion going on over here. Excuse me. All right, got that out of the way. Running just a few minutes behind my usual schedule, so thank you guys for joining us and tuning in tonight. Uh, we'll get this off and running here in just a second. Oh, would you look at that? It's time to renew my subscription as well, if it will let me. Nope. 2 days to go. July. I have to wait to July 11th. Okay. But if it is your time, make sure to renew your subscription in that top right hand corner. Hit that big purple button. It says renew subscription. That way you keep your streak active, and you stay in the running to get yourself some cool foils and poker chips. Um, We've been handing out those. Not everybody's gotten them yet. I know some people, you hit your 3 months or 4 months and you're wondering when you're going to get your stuff. Because the poker chips have to go with it, they can't go in a standard envelope that I could just send things in, so I try and combo those together. The poker chip itself has a little bit of extra weight to it, which is more than a standard size envelope. It's also a lot more rigid, and the U.S. post office machines tend to chew it up and not really in a good way. So what's going on in Star Wars? Well, we're in the middle of a whole bunch of state and open championship events. Let's go this way. Hang on a second. Let's go that to there. This over here. Okay. So we're in the middle of our tournament season this summer. You can go to the tournament section here. You'll find out about fun upcoming events like Tatooine Super Weekend for those of you in Colorado. Just under 2 weeks away. You've got the Dagobah Regionals and Georgia State's Super Weekend. For those of you interested, you could just click right here and you could find out that, hey, this event is taking place July 27th and 28th, so end of the month. Two events kind of back to back here in the southern uh, area. Oh, not what I want to do. There we go. You got Washington State's coming up here. Bespin Super Weekend coming up at the end of the month. We just had Wisconsin State's not too long ago. Those are the ones that have been posted. Of course, you can always go right to this tournament season schedule and application, or you can, if you want to host an event, you can do that here. Otherwise, you can find out about all the events that are coming up. We've got quite a few. Only a couple of these. There's a couple missing from this list, so I guess those guys posting in that other thread haven't finished the approval process and paid the fee to get their event registered yet. That's why it hasn't shown up on the finalized list. But be sure and check here. The other place that people sometimes like to post these events, if you go back to the main page here, there's this league championships, and then there's a number of different leagues in different areas. Not all of them are active, unfortunately. Some have kind of died off a little bit. But if you go into some of the individual league forums, sometimes they post there about the events too, like the VA League. I know posts its upcoming events and stuff. A lot of areas tend to do that because they just expect people in their area to play, and they figure the people who are playing in their league are going to be the ones who are likely going to come to their state and regional championship. Um, Tomato, tomato, where you put it, but as long as you get it out there, get the word out there. I know Tom Haid has been going crazy on Facebook the last week or so, posting all these events, on to get them little forums, little tags on the Star Wars page on Facebook, so more people can share that and get the word out more about the event. We know people don't come to the forums all the time. Some people don't live on here like some of us do. And Mike Turner's going to be posting a thread about Montana states later tonight. So there you go. Stay tuned for insider information. Mike, wasn't that event already scheduled? Did you have to postpone and reschedule that? I felt like that event was supposed to have happened already. But maybe that's a good thing for you people out there that it had to get postponed because now maybe you can attend. The other big event coming up, of course, we're just 5 days away from the European Championship taking place in the Netherlands. Unfortunately, because of Wi Fi issues and whatnot in Europe, there will be no live streaming coverage of this event. They are trying to possibly record some games, and then maybe we can get the footage and we can do some play by play coverage afterward. Um, as to what's going on. Yes, we'll already know who won the event, but still fun to see some of the top players in the world are from Europe, and seeing some of those guys play some games of Star Wars is always good for the masses, and we can analyze what they did right, what we think they did wrong, but they know that they did right. All that fun stuff there. Montana State's got postponed to September 1st, according to Mike Turner. So now it's 2 months away. So now you guys got plenty of time to get yourself travel plans situated to head out to Missoula area, Montana. I'm guessing, uh, and attend that state championship. So there'll be events happening throughout July, August, and the first week of September, I believe, is the cutoff date. Um, Obviously, people trying to avoid North American Continentals being a weekend people want to avoid scheduling events during, unless they happen to know a lot of people will not be attending, which I don't understand why, because everybody should be attending this event. Um, and I know a lot of people with Set 11 scheduled to release on August 2nd want to try and schedule events the 2 weeks in between when the Set 11 is released. That way they can get some last minute practice for the major event, testing out some of the new Set 11 cards, seeing what kind of effect they have on the meta. I'm sure the August OCS, depending on how quickly the cards get coded into GEMP and updated, will also be a very strong playtesting session for a lot of people leading up to North American Continentals. And speaking of the European Championships being a good playtesting session, if you come check out the current OCS standings for July, 10 and 0 Bastion Winklehouse, 7 day, 1 week into the tournament, has already played 10 games, has won all 10 by a pretty convincing start to the month. That already qualified is he, but he certainly could create the potential for an at-large bid. You also look right down here, and you've got Steve Brenson, who's sitting right now currently at the top of the at-large bid leaderboard at 7-0. If he were to continue his winning ways, he would be one of the qualifiers this month, very likely, and then that would shift down to the rest of us, uh, middle-level folks who would like to qualify for the OCS playoffs. That would make that race a bit more heated and contested because right now, second place, Steve's at 148 points cumulative. He's in first place for that at-large bid, and second place is 144 points, and it's four guys who are tied. So you'd have to go to strength of schedule to break that tie. And if there were two spots there, then there's a 50-50 chance of those guys making it. Of course, there are still a couple months left to play, so we'll see how things shake out here. But obviously, some more people can continue to qualify. Gavin, who's one of those people as well, is sitting right here at 5-1. You've got All Stars, Justin 7. That's 6-3. Probably not gonna hold up and be good enough to, if you were to win out. 9-3 is probably not gonna get it done this month, but you never know. Looks like Ross is 7-2 right there. He'd probably have to win out 10-2, but still could definitely make that kind of run. And then you scroll down a little bit, you look at some of these other guys. Uh, we got some 3-1, 3, 2-1s. So not a lot of games being not there's not as many people who have played a lot of games yet this month in the OCS as we are only a week in, and I'm sure we'll be getting some more action going tonight. Looks like it'll be in the Montana states. Will be in the Helena region. So if you ever wanted to see that part of Montana, well, that would be a great time to do that. Any spoilers tonight? I do not have any additional set 11 spoilers. We can recap real quick all the spoilers that have come out. They are all finally accumulated in this one handy dandy little thread started by the dude. We've talked about a number of these cards before. More recently featured was the Belden's Eye All My Urchins, which is a nice helper for QMC because it's basically Belden's Eye, this whole thing of search and take the ship, take both into hand and deploy for -1 each, that whole thing. And then you get this extra little added text of once per game, if opponent is initiated at Bespin system, you can cancel that battle. If executor not there, opponent may instead use 3 force. It's weird the way that's written right there. So they can use 3 force to make the battle go through. Is that what that's trying to say? That's kind of some crazy wording. I'm sure that'll get clarified before the final text is released. We should expect to see the full spoiler lists hopefully in the next week or so. I'm hoping, I've heard they're tentatively trying to release it, right around the time of the European Championship. Either it'll be that weekend or like Monday, Tuesday after. So we might have it for next week's show. We can talk about all the crazy news, the rest of the cards that we haven't seen yet. It may come out in time for the European Championship, so those guys can have some time in between games to talk about some stuff. I don't have these specific final details yet, but yeah. And then you've got this was the other recent new one that I just saw. Rendezvous Point on Tatooine, which is a starting interrupt. If you have deployed a Jabba's Palace site, you deploy Seeking an Audience and up to 2 effects that deploy on table and are always immune to alter. So you have to start Seeking, and then you get 2 other effects, whichever ones you want. Then the interrupt goes to your hand, and you can play it as a lost interrupt to download a Tatooine Battleground. So if you deployed a Jabba's Palace site, it would typically be Prophet or Agents in the Court would be the 2 objectives that would satisfy that. If you were doing, I can't imagine you would do just like a Jabba's Palace site and then play this as a starting interrupt without an objective. So those seem to be the 2 objectives that this would help. I don't think anything else gives you the option of just starting a random Tatooine Jabba's Palace site like that. Like Hyperdrive doesn't let you just like Senate might, but none of them are Episode 1 icons. Like there's nothing else that would really function with that. So Prophet being the most likely, Agents of the Court could also use it. But this would be a way for Prophet to get an extra battleground site. So if you weren't playing the farm puller and all the used pile searches that come with it, I don't know exactly what kind of Prophet deck you're building, but if you wanted to get an extra location, maybe like the city outskirts or something, which you could then use to pull a Jedi, so you could pull Qui-Gon or Ben or somebody like that to help go rescue Han out of the palace. That could be a way to do it. I've seen a lot of people talking about using this to pull the Tatooine system. So that way, there's a number of things. The flip side of the Prophet objective talks about like deploying the Falcon right to exterior sites, and then you could put Han in it and take him off, and that would be a good way to keep him safe because Han's always has a problem. He usually ends up getting killed, and then you have to retrieve him and then redeploy them because you can't do any damage when Han's dead and you're on the 0 side of your objective. Yeah, it takes the JCC need out of Prophet, I think. Yeah, it should free up because they won't need to play extra pullers. You can get away with just playing some Whis and a Bosch Nash Chamber because you're probably going to want the Whis anyway to help subtract 1 from Weapon Destinies to keep people alive. Plus, they're used 5s, which are always good to get around. circulate through your deck. Can't talk today. Um, so yeah, so then not having to play two or three speaks in the Jedi Council chamber, which you then have to worry about potentially defending at some point later in the game, would be good. Now you could have the Tatooine system. You can have the Episode 1 Tatooine system, which is a lot better. Um, so yeah, so Prophet could certainly have some things, but I did want to read just exactly what is on the flip side of the old Prophet objective, because I know there's some cool stuff. On the flip side here, with unpiloted starfighters may deploy to exterior Tatooine locations, and then during your control phase, opponent loses one force for each battleground they occupy. And then you flip back if Han is captured or not on table. So if Han's up in space, he's probably a lot safer. Um, you probably have some more stuff with him. He's not getting hit by weapons. Stuff's not being made forfeit zero. I mean, I guess you could try and shoot the Falcon or whatnot there. So that would be certainly another way. And then it continues to do the damage loss here because it's just battleground location. So Han being at the system would still cause a ping damage. Prophet has also been a deck that has pretty much always had a problem with battle plan. So being able to get around that to not have to pay for your drains could certainly be advantageous. I know back in the day, way back in the day, what some of us used to do was run that Lando and Falcon card that we almost never see play with a landing claw, and then you just attach that to like their Star Destroyer or something, and then during your control phase, you detach it. You don't have to pay to drain. It counts as a persona of Lando, so then you get the extra ping damage that way, um, and then you just reattach it so it doesn't get the crap kicked out of it. Um, it's probably the only time I've seen that card played in like the last 10 years was in Prophet in that context. So can't you just float a Yarna V or two as is to get the Tatooine system out? That is an excellent question. I believe the answer to that is yes, you could, but then you're floating Yarna because you just deploy on table, and then once per turn you can get Tatooine Battleground and do all this stuff. You don't really want any of these other cards. Yes, it's a 6. You could be floating a 6 through your deck, but you either don't have the consistency because if you're going to play 2 or 3 copies of this, they're not going to get on the, you're not going to get it right away. Or you're going to have to waste one of your use pile searches taking that into hand to then. So the starting interrupt kind of just makes you not have to play extra useless cards in your deck. I mean, yes, they're 6s, so they're still good when drawn for Destiny and things, unless you're trying to sense something. It does. You don't need the fluff cards, the filler cards. Kind of just streamlines it a little bit because Prophet's always been a deck that wants to play a lot of interrupts and things to keep its characters alive. And now, if you're gonna open up the ability to play the system, then you're gonna need room for a couple of ships. And if you're playing a couple of ships, and you have to find room for that. Now you got to find room for 2 or 3 copies of Yarna. You're kind of watering the deck down a little bit, so not having to waste some card slots on extra Yarnas or extra location pullers or effect pullers, things like that, certainly helps keep Prophet competitive and not having to deal with that. Yeah, the interrupt. Yeah, the interrupt goes to hand after you do it, so then you just immediately go get the system and get a quick, nice little activation jump there. So you pull the farm, you pull the system, and you go from yeah, they're all battlegrounds. But you gave yourself 4 icons. It was a 4-2 start. Now you're up to an 8-4. Um, so you get some quick activation that way. So you can start deploying all your expensive stuff. Could also lend its way to a home one Akbar package with some rebel leaderships. We'll see a General Leia on the ground. We'll see possibly a General Kenobi or just Obi-Wan as opposed to Ben Kenobi. So you get some different personas. Possibly now you'll use General Leia instead of like Leia Rebel Princess maybe. So it kind of gives you some different flexibility in terms of which characters and which personas of characters you want to use in a Prophet deck. Um, Agents of the Court, certainly not a deck we ever see because, well, it's not that good. It hasn't been that good. It's been very goofy. Dark side aliens work a lot better because of scum and villainy than light side aliens do. That the Cantina card, whatever it is, Maz's Ancient Watering Hole was supposed to kind of be a little bit of a boost for these types of decks. Hasn't quite panned out that way just yet. I mean, you flip the objective and you don't really get the same benefits even as some of the other ones. Um, yeah, like the dark side objective when you've got Jabba and Bib together, your Battle Destiny draws are +3 anywhere. So you send guys all over the place, do all kinds of battles, and your total Battle Destiny just keeps being +3 in those battles. The dark side one, when you're battling at Tatooine, you get a Destiny to total power. That's clearly an inferior power on this objective, so it makes it a lot less appealing to use. Plus, you also don't have as good a game text with a lot of light side aliens. So, I mean, yes, this could be, and this objective you can start Yarna, so I don't necessarily see the new starting interrupt being as useful for agents. It's really more of a profit helper, but I guess flexibility to be used in agents, it could be. It could save you the card slot of not needing to start Yarna. You just start take the interrupt and then use that to pull your location instead. So that's Rendezvous Point on Tatooine, and then some of these other stuff we spoiled. Jedi Lightsaber, that's kind of what we've seen so far. And then you've got Narthax and his gun and whatnot. A couple other cards. Quietly Observing, deploy on table. Aura, Bosk, and Cad are Destiny +2. So these Destiny 1 aliens now become Destiny 3. It's a little more helpful. That's always been kind of a criticism of Scum decks compared to a lot of other character personas and things. Um, Lightside gets a lot of the good aliens who are all like Destiny 3, Destiny 4, and most of the ones that Darkside wants to play are all Destiny 1s, Destiny 2. So your Scum decks typically have pretty bad draws. Great for hidden weapons when you're drawing those 2s, not 1s. But having a couple extra characters who go now become Destiny 3 could also trigger some other hidden weapons functions, so that's pretty cool. Once per game may reveal a unique alien from hand or reserve deck. For remainder of game, that card is an assassin and ignores Reflections 2 and Theed Palace objective deployment restrictions. The assassin part, not really going to play a whole lot right now. It's kind of a throwback to an old legacy objective that focused on characters being assassins. But this part here, Reflections 2, that's Agents of the Black Sun, which we just had up. This is the one that only works with bounty hunters, information brokers, and characters with Black Sun in their lore, like the Prince and Guri and Vigos. So that gives you one more alien that you could add to a Black Sun deck. Not sure exactly which ones you might want, but I've heard people talk about, actually, I haven't heard people talk about much about who they went. People were talking about Arica, and it was ruled that I think she would not work because she's an Imperial still, so that would be a problem. But I think she's the one that most people would tend to want, but maybe there'll be a Mara Jade in the future who is just an alien or something. But yeah, there could be some interesting aliens with unique game text that may benefit a Black Sun or a Theed Palace being Invasion. Invasion has a very limited character pool, so getting the ability to play Aura Sing or something like that in a battle droid deck. You're already playing the effect to make your battle droid blasters 6s. You can play Aura Singh's gun. Make the 6s into 8s. You can play Aura Singh's gun and turn her 7 Destiny gun into 9s, which is certainly a thing too. But that's it so far for set 11 spoilers. That's about a dozen cards each. I think I don't a dozen cards total. About 6 or 7 per side. I think I don't even want to speculate. I think the full set's probably going to be around 20 to 25 cards per side. But don't quote me on that. They always make changes on things at the last minute. But even 25 cards total would still be good. 12 or 13 cards per side. Kind of shake things up a little bit. Whether or not we see any completely new concepts coming in this set or possibly next set, you know, is always interesting and exciting to think about what those could be. Maybe giving helpers to decks that currently aren't played, like we just saw there. Maybe some Rescue the Princess helpers or uh, Dantooine base operations. We brought Ral Ops back. Let's bring back DBO too, right? That's sarcasm. Please don't do that. DBO is less fun to play against than Ral Ops when it's working properly. It's just incredibly annoying. But yeah, you never know what you might see get a boost. Invasion might get another little boost. Maybe Jedi training or might get a boost. Maybe Hyperdrive recently got it. Maybe Agents of the Court will get a boost and actually get an additional benefit for being on the 7 side or something. So all good stuff. Let's see if there's any games going on right now that would be worth looking at. Yeah, looks like we just got a couple of casual games. Oh, we got All Stars playing a Diplo deck against a Hunt Down. A little early to jump into that one and watch it. Looks like, yeah, just a bunch of casual games. No OCS stuff going on tonight so far. Okay. We're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into our featured game of the week then. Continuing to talk about decks and things like that we don't see all that often. We have a link here that was provided by Tarelion. He's Dark Side. He is playing with Invasion against Quiet Mining Colony. So this should be interesting to see which versions of Invasion and QMC we're kind of looking at. And we talked about these decks getting some new helpers in the upcoming set. So find ways to make these decks even better. It looks like he's running the Battle Droid Blaster version. So we've got Inconsequential, which is the one that lets you forfeit the guns to your used pile for a value of 3. Also works very well with your space weapons, with your laser cannon batteries. Some people do the droid starfighters and their guns too, because their guns are also 5s or 6s, I think. I think they're 6s. That's going a little far, a little excessive, because the starfighters themselves are pretty bad. Um, you can just get away with a couple of laser cannon batteries for the blockade flagship, which can actually shoot and hit stuff. You'll be dead, of course, making people lose ping damage for having blasters at sites, and an entire legion, which is the car I talked about just a minute ago, which says also your blaster rifles, stormtrooper utility belts, and blaster scopes are deploy -1 and destiny +2 when drawn for battle or weapon destiny. So the battle droid blaster rifle, which is a destiny 6 with this card, becomes a destiny 8 for battle and weapon destinies. When you can blind draw a whole bunch of 8s, you don't really need to be very good at tracking. Get yourself out of some jams pretty easy. When you play 9 to 10 copies of the gun, usually I think 10 is usually the average number that we see in most of these battle droid based decks. And so when you've got 10 Destiny 8s floating through your deck, you tend to play things a little more loosely. You'll also notice that a lot of light side key characters, they're mid-level characters, Rey, Lando, some versions of Leia, uh, you know, people like that. Most of them forfeit for 7. So when you draw an 8, you clear 2 of them. Most Hans are, other than General Solo, I think every Han is forfeit 7. So characters like that are all in that 6-7 range. Padme, I think, is a 7. Lando's a 6. Most Landos are a 6. I think General Lando is also a 7. So drawing 8s can be problematic for light side decks, forcing them to lose 2 cards at a time. If it ever also comes up into play, it beats Jedi Luke's immunity. He's immune to less than 7, with his lightsaber, and he's alone. Things like that. Kenobi, same thing. That kind of stuff. Mace, yeah. Tell us what decks I expect to see at the European Championship and why when you get a chance. Okay, we'll circle back to that at the end of the show. We'll end the show with that. I'll keep you hanging on for a little while longer. All right, and our QMC build looks like a pretty stereotypical QMC using Belden's Eye, which we talked about. Losing this text of the defense value +2 to replace it with the ability to cancel the battle at the system. This part here rarely comes into play. We don't see a lot of space weapons so much anymore because of Bail Organa and Theranet. For Darkside, not really too much benefit to a lot of Darkside space weapons. You will see Baron's Cannon from time to time because usually it's just a one swift action. It's deploy Baron Saber 1 and the gun, battle, shoot something, and then, yeah, just hope they didn't have Theranet down before you wanted to deploy all that. Um, Keeping the Empire out forever, which is the broken card that makes QMC run. You flip your objective very quickly with this different method, and then once per turn, go through your force pile and get any card you want. That's once per turn, so you do it on your turn and your opponent's turn, which means you can pretty much leave yourself plenty of force because you don't need to draw to find the good cards. You just pick up your force pile, take the good card out, put the rest of it back. So you can leave 4 to 5 force every turn, which then leads into your next turn and all your ability to do lots of things. You know, a lot of other decks have to draw, trying to find the cards that they need. They maybe only leave 1 force for a grabber or something like that at the end of each turn. But the QMC doesn't really ever have that option, and that's why they can afford to play expensive interrupts like It's a Trap or Alternatives to Fighting, where they have to spend 3, possibly 4 force with First Strike out um, to cancel battles to avoid, the beatdowns and things like that, because they can leave lots of force behind. And then Walkling, because, well, Walkling's just a good effect. Usually they'll use this to pull launching the assault, so then they slap that on Bespin and then go get Home 1, and then set up like the Home 1 Akbar package, play a couple leaderships, and then just kind of Home 1 Akbar, Harksef, and the Overseer kind of just hold Bespin and then set up Celebration. All right, so Darkside starts off. The flagship has a once per game ability to get a Nemoidian pilot aboard. Sometimes we see them get Tae Hao. He's usually a pretty good pilot because Tae Hao basically has a built-in text where you just spend force to reduce the force loss from drains at systems that are within 2 parsecs. So you're at parsec 5, so with 3 to 7, he just pays whatever to basically cancel the drains. You're not canceling the drain, you're just reducing the force loss. Kind of like, and it could be worse. Kind of built in. So Bespin here at 6, you can never have to move over. And just, they drain for 1 or 2 here. You just pay 1 or 2 force and never lose a card to a drain at this system. But Dauphine is pretty good too, because he has this little benefit at the start of your draw phase. If you have no cards in your force pile, you can activate up to 2 force. Kind of let you spend extra force deploying and moving people around, because then at the start of your draw phase, you activate 2, so then you can draw 2 cards if you need to, or draw 1 and leave 1, so then you have force to fire your guns, which cost force, or to, play interrupts and or grab stuff. And then he also gives you the redraw. If you just drew a battle droid or destroy a droid, you can take it into hand to cancel and redraw it. So when you draw your low destiny droids, he lets you take them into hand to cancel and redraw, so then you can draw your high destiny battle droid guns, which do cost 1 force to shoot. The B2 droid draws him unable to otherwise, so he's got a pretty decent deploy forfeit. He's armor 5, making him slightly harder to hit. Good power. You put a gun on him. The gun can forfeit because of, as we mentioned earlier, because of inconsequential losses for 3 to the used pile, so that puts the 6 back in your deck. And then the droid dies, and the droid goes to the droid racks. Droid just lost, place it here. During control phase, you can use 2 force to take any battle droid back into hand. So you kind of just keep looping the same guys around, kind of the way Scum does. You deploy a battle droid, you slap a gun on him, you battle, you shoot somebody, you hit somebody else, you draw, you sniper them to take them out of the battle, you draw another 8 for destiny, you kill 2 or 3 guys at one time. It's kind of like a poor man's Darth Maul. That's really what it comes down to. And then you forfeit the gun to your used pile. You send the droid to the racks, and you just kind of pick them up and repeat it and do the whole thing over again later. Um, where Invasion has problems with, because these battle droids are triple dotted, decks that can spread out to a variety of sites, often like Diplo and things like that, will give it problems. QMC being a deck that can also occupy a number of locations. Also, decks that can avoid battles and keep the droids kind of stuck on the table with things like Dodge, Path, Rebel Barrier, those kinds of things can be difficult for this to deal with. The flip side of that is a deck like Throne Room, where they just stack a pile of guys all at one site, and then they've got Luke, Obi, and Lando all sitting on a site together, and it's like 30 power. Um, one little battle droid's not going to get through that. Um, so then you end up having to either find your Gix and start picking guys off one at a time while you're avoiding being drained for three or four. Um, or you have to put a couple guys together, and that can sometimes be a problem for Invasion, because Invasion doesn't usually activate a whole lot of force. They kind of want to just hit and run with one or two guys over and over again. You see there the start of draw phase action, because he spent all the force. He gets to activate two, so he can go ahead and draw one, and then he can leave that other one behind, so he can use it for a grabber, use it to fire the gun, bluff a barrier, all that good stuff. So Dauphine's pretty helpful for that. We'll see if QMC has the ability to do the quick flip here. Firepower is a great defensive shield to pull against QMC. What does Firepower say? If an opponent moves from a location you occupy during your turn, they lose 2 force. So when they play Path or Dodge, or something like that, to move away from your battle, they have to lose 2 force to do it. So that kind of not quite as good as battling and killing their guys, but at least it makes them pay a price to do it. Plus, usually the interrupt that they used is lost. So they're losing 3 cards, and that kind of can add up after a couple turns. Some extra damage. There's the Harksef and the Overseer. Very solid at Bestman. It's like 5 power, but he adds a Destiny to power. And he doesn't draw by himself. Um, and then it's immune to less than 6 when it's at Bestman, too. So it's very difficult to get rid of. And there is the quick flip with Calfal, a deploy 0 guy. Ray. Ray takes a card into hand from the used pile. Home 1 War Room. Extra force. Makes it also cheaper to get home 1 out. And then he can just go ahead and consolidate at the 1-0 for now, because he's not really worried about draining or doing damage. QMC's a deck that kind of takes a couple turns to get itself set up and going, and then kind of stabilizes, starts retrieving with Celebration, and then just kind of spreads laterally and causes lots of damage. Trains for 1 at 4 different sites. When you get Pusimer out, you start training for 2 at a couple different sites, and the system with home 1 and launching the assault. So he's going to force push, and he's going to send 2 guns back. Okay, and he did that to get the Gick. His opponent is now activating 16 force and has the ability to get any card he wants out of his force pile, so that's not a bad move. He caused 1 ping damage. He threw away his other copy of the Home 1 War Room. Okay. And now he'll Point Man. Probably takes Sidious. Yep, he does. Point Man's very useful in this deck because it, again, stops you from having to draw. Also lets you put some of your high destiny guns and things that you may not need in hand right now to circulate back into your deck. That's always a problem when you draw 4 or 5 guns and don't have any guys to put them on. So Point Man can kind of help you solve both of those problems. If you have 2 grabbers and you're playing against Invasion, and Point Man would be a decent card worth grabbing. Usually, Switch Off or There They Are would be the other ones that you'd probably want to grab. And now we get a bit of a widespread here. See if they have. Nope. Usually, when they kind of spread out like this, sometimes you see um, Celebration come out. But he's going to drop Leia. So she deployed for. We'll get that out of the way. She deployed for 2 cheaper to this site. So she dropped nice and cheap. She can cancel drains to help again mitigate some of the loss. Um, the new Luke people have been using quite a bit in QMC. Yeah, because he doesn't deploy. His restriction is he doesn't deploy to a site opponent occupies, which QMC rarely does anyway, because they have usually quite a few different sites to go to. Um, and then he's just completely immune to attrition. He also has a pretty good deploy forfeit ratio, and he's ability 7, so he's harder to hit with weapons and things like that. And then you get this ability to cancel and cause a redraw, which can kind of screw things up for your opponent as well, because it's any just drawn destiny. It's not a battle destiny. You can do it to weapon destinies, hidden weapons destinies, anything like that during a battle. Only once though. He's currently bugged on GEMP. That is a known bug they are working on trying to fix. But Luke will continue to light up multiple times. He's not coded properly as being enforced by the one rule. So don't cheat your opponents and don't use Luke more than once per battle. Oh, Tarelion causes the 1 ping, but he top decks Pusimer, who's pretty important because he's the one who adds 1 to your drains at all uh, Cloud City locations. He pays 3 to drain. That puts the Leia cancels it and puts the site on top. His opponent let him take it back. I guess he forgot that Leia could cancel the drains or didn't know. Hang on a second here. Alright, so Lord Sidious. Once per game, upload always 2 there are, which I think is a card that we just saw a spoiler for. Wait a second. Wait a second. Always 2 there are. Look at that on the set 11 spoiler list. If you just lost a Dark Jedi and have exactly 1 Dark Jedi on table, take a Dark Jedi into hand from reserve deck. So if you had Sidious and say deployed Lord Maul, he battled, killed some people, and then Lord Maul died, you'd only have 1 Dark Jedi left on the table. You could then take another one into hand from reserve deck, so you could get that second copy of Lord Maul out of your deck in an invasion deck. That could be pretty good. Destiny 2, that's not so good. It's Lost Interrupt, that's also not so good. Once per game, if you have exactly 2 Dark Jedi on table, choose. Opponent loses 2 force, or make a just drawn destiny equal to. So, in that same scenario, you have your Maul. He comes down, he battles some people. They hit you, you hit them, whatever. High destiny is drawn. You could make it 2, so that way, maybe you don't clear something else. Um, you know, 2 is a good number in this particular deck because a battle droid rifle forfeits to the use pile for 3, so that would be pretty good. Or you could just cause 2 extra force loss, which could also be pretty helpful, depending on where we are in the game. So this would be a guy who once per game can take it into hand. He can also get you into Moidian, so it can help you flip your objective or, get your Teihao or Newt Gunray or somebody out. If he's alone, or if there's a Theed Palace objective on table, so he doesn't have to be alone if you're playing him in Invasion. Opponent initiated a battle here, you can exclude 1 character of ability less than 6 present. So they battle you, and you exclude any 1 guy they have of ability less than 6. Do have to be careful with this because this is usually when your opponent pulls the weapons display shield, which says similar to firepower, instead of moving away, if you exclude, you lose 2 force. So Sidious does trigger that effect, and you would lose 2 force for Sidious excluding people, but sometimes it might be worth it. Excluding Anakin in this battle for 2 force potentially could be worth it. Somebody else like an EPP Luke or a EPP Rey or even regular Rey with Solo or something like that, excluding one of those guys, or Chewie who's got a weapon, that it could be worth losing 2 force to do in the right circumstances. And we're going to get a Newt Gunray V. Now, the other thing to remember, the text on Bespin. If you control opponents' characters and vehicles, deploy +1 to Cloud City locations. So these guys have +1 for Sidious, +1 for Newt Gunray. The other thing about Sidious is the text on the Overseer. If a Dark Jedi or Sith was just deployed to a related location, you can download a related location. He's already got 5 sites on the table. Well, he had 4 sites on the table. He used the response text to get the 5th site out of his deck, so he doesn't have to waste one of his force pile pulls on it. QMC likes to flip pretty quickly, and once you flip, you lose the ability to get the regular locations. The flip side of the objective lets you get the docking bay, as you'll see here. Once during your turns, you can deploy a docking bay from reserve deck, so it gets you the docking bay out, but if you didn't get one of your other sites yet, you still have that 0 floating in your deck. If they deploy Dark Jedi to invade your locations, the Overseer can get the site out and speed things up for you. Can also put some extra distance between, depending on how you align your sites. So if they were planning on, I can just deploy some guys here and then I'll walk over to this 1-0 site where Leia's at, and they're like, yeah, no, I'm going to stick this site in between, so now you're not going to make it. That could really screw things up and keep some people isolated, which is kind of how QMC wants to roll. And then we got this last droid here, and I don't know what this guy does. Which droid is this? Looks like just random dot droid. Use 1 force to target an opponent's character present. Target is defense value -3 for remainder of turn. Well, I take that back. Apparently he's got some pretty useful text. While with another battle droid at a site, draws 1 destiny if unable to otherwise. Okay. So use a force to target opponent's character. They are defense value -3 for remainder of turn. And then you pay 1 to shoot your gun, which requires a little extra force than he's got right now. But that would make it pretty easy to pick off, make Anakin defense value 2, make Luke defense value 4. Pretty good chance you can hit those guys with the amount of high destiny cards you have in a deck like this. Excuse me. He does have Imperial Justice, where he stacks 3 characters on Imperial Justice. Interesting. That's good, because now he knows where they are, and if they battle, he can take them into hand and whatnot. Oh, Anakin's there. I was like, wait, what just happened? He didn't have enough force to do this. Anakin says both players battle for free. Players may initiate battles for free here. So both people get the battle. So he'll go ahead. Now, remember the thing with Justice, though, is that it stops all bonuses. He draws an 8. Could have hit Luke, could have hit Anakin. But they could have had something else to protect that. New Gunray, if with your Republic character or character with Trade Federation and lore, may add 1 battle destiny. Sidious here has Trade Federation and lore. I don't know if the droid does as well. Nope, this particular droid does not. I don't know the lores very well on battle droids. I apologize for that. But yeah, so Newt's going to add a battle destiny here, so now he's going to get 2 destiny, so he won't be using Justice because then he's limiting himself. Justice is a weird card. I mean, you need it in certain situations to prevent them from drawing multiple destinies and like clearing your ship off the system and things, or overflowing you in a big battle. but it also does negate some of your bonuses as well. The +2 to your rifles being one of them, or possibly adding extra destiny draws. When you're flipped, it comes in very handy because the flip side of your objective says where you have 2 cards with different titles, you draw 2 if unable to otherwise. So if you play Justice and take a card, you still get the 2 Battle Destiny draws. So you limit your opponent to 1, but you would still get 2 on the flip side of the objective. So Justice is sometimes more useful when you're flipped, but it can still be very useful to get you out of tough situations or maybe just get an extra card into hand that you might need when your hand's running pretty thin. Tarelion has certainly benefited as well this game playing against his opponent. He can redraw that, take that into hand, get the droid. Playing against a deck with a lot of battlegrounds, getting the extra force. He doesn't give himself a whole lot. A deck like Throne Room or Hitco or something like that can be pretty difficult to deal with. Alright, so he redrew his low destiny to get the 6, which Luke is then going to make him redraw. And then he gets a 3 the second time around. Another copy of Justice. Okay. I don't know that you need 2 copies of Justice. I mean, I know how people use it, but... Ouch. And a fairly low draw. Fairly low draw. Told you I can't talk today. Must be that brain tumor. So he draws the 2. I was +1 from Anakin. So he'll just forfeit the gun to the use pile for 3. And that'll cover it. And meanwhile, light side's going to have to lose 2 characters? Yes. Anakin covered the 8. Battle damage, and Calfal was hit. The gun doesn't make forfeit 0. It does make them forfeit -4. So, in some cases, for a number of characters, they'll be close to 0. Basically, make Calfal forfeit 1. So, and because he used all his force, now in his draw phase, he can activate 2. Which will give him at least the ability to draw at least 1 card and get himself another gun. See how they just keep cycling through? Kind of the way this is supposed to work. I'm going to refresh here. I don't know if you guys went real quiet on me or if chat froze up on me again. If you posted a question in the last couple minutes and I missed it and haven't addressed it yet, I apologize. May have just been a chat issue, so if you repost it, I'll try and answer it. The last thing I saw was the question about what decks do I wish to see played at the, or do I think are going to be played at the European Championship? We got Rose, we got BB-8, we got Lobot, we got Obi. Do we see a celebration? No celebration. Okay. Lobot, if a battle was just initiated at same site, you can download an alien here, free if it's Lando as a react. However, Darkseid gets the first just in this situation. So they're going to use Lord Sidious in this case because he doesn't have to be alone if there's a Theed Palace objective on table. And they're going to exclude him. And Siegs did not pull the weapons display shield to punish that play and make him have to lose 2 force for doing it. Everyone's just quietly learning. Invasion and QMC are both 2 pretty interesting decks, so I can see everybody just staring intently at their screens, trying to soak in all of the knowledge. All right, so he leaderships with Kenobi to limit Darkseid to 1 draw from Newt. Darkseid goes ahead and responds and picks up a card just to get another card into hand, taking OWO, who also helps with Justice. I'll show you him in a second. That should not work. That's also not allowed. So again, don't do that to your opponents because Luke is still bugged. Justice says those draws can't be modified or canceled. And Luke cancels and causes a redraw. So Luke should not be able to do that and make him redraw that 5. Luckily, he draws another 5, so it doesn't really have much of a gameplay significance other than the fact that we just saw an extra card and it kind of moved an extra card around that shouldn't. It changes the order of the cards and whatnot. Um, but yeah, that's the other bug with Luke. So Luke has some bugs to him, which is why I haven't played him yet, because I don't like playing cards that don't work the way they're supposed to. And trying to remember what you can and can't do with them. Now he's going to move some characters around. Using the other text here on the 1-0 during your move phase. This is similar to the street we see in Ral Ops all the time, where they just bounce guys all over the place for free. Uh, yeah. During your move phase, you can move for free between here and any Cloud City site. So they can move from there to here for free, or from here somewhere else for free. By the way, if you're not sure how to do that, you just click on the site and it will flip the text around. And then his opponent's going to play Grimtosh, Lost. He wants to see what's in his hand and what duplicates he might be able to snag, or possibly just know if he needs to move other people away. So he's going to get some free information. Find out he's got a couple of droids. Well, he should know because was taken into hand and OWO was taken into hand already. So this could get pretty interesting here in a minute, because what Darkseid now has the ability to do, if they happen to get, I won't say reasonably lucky, but not really much at all in a deck like this. So you've got this guy here who can make them guy defense value -3. And you've got a gun and a whole bunch of high destinies. You can shoot Luke fairly consistently, or possibly even Rey, and then just sniper, take him right out of the battle, which would be pretty good. Then you also have OWO in hand. Requires a little extra to move. His power bonus when he's with Jedi. But when he's with the battle droid at a site, he draws 2 if unable to otherwise, and opponent force drains are -1 at adjacent sites. If you're playing on Theed Palace, he's typically a guy you kind of see in the middle. That way he subtracts from adjacent sites. In this particular case, Lightside really isn't doing a lot of draining, but now this drain here at this adjacent site would be reduced. I'm assuming OWO is going to end up going down here, probably with the gun, and these guys are going to get battled and shot, and a whole bunch of fun stuff will happen. With the blast door controls out, there'll be no barrier and no blast the door kid. Interestingly enough, he goes here instead. Okay, I guess he's going to go after these particular characters instead. Just drop another droid. Drop the gun. You know, pick off Rose or Leia, who are going to get annoying. He's going to alter blast door controls. If he had any more force available to play, like Blast the Door Kid or something like that, that would be pretty good. I guess he figured he better just play it now before Luke possibly dies. But the gun's already in play, so he should. He's just gonna go for the easy shot, pick off BB-8. He drew low, but again he can redraw it. So Rose has pretty terrible forfeit. She only forfeits for 2. So if you shoot BB-8 and make him forfeit 0, and Rose only forfeits for 2, then you're pretty much getting rid of Leia just from Battle Destiny. We're drawing 2 Destiny anyway, so you have a pretty good chance of clearing both here. And again, he doesn't have any guns in hand, and there's only 2 on the table, so there should be 7 or 8 more copies floating around in the deck. And he gets the magic number of 8. That'll be good enough to clear everybody. Dark side will just forfeit the gun because light side drew a 3. That way they'll get to keep their 2 droids together, so they get to keep their extra battle destinies. Oh, BB-8 has some weird text, doesn't he? If just forfeited from a site, opponent may capture BB-8 while a captive adds 1 to force drains. Well, that'd be interesting. Not really seeing that because this is again a kind of deck where your guys are going to be leaving the table and coming back. So I don't think you really want to capture BB-8. Just let him die. Um, you don't want light side getting him back because then they can start doing ping damage. And again, dark side able to forfeit just the weapons and keep the characters. Light side having to lose everybody between the guy being shot and the 8 battle destiny being drawn. And now they're going to opt to move away. Not wanting to deal with whatever Siegs might have access to. Already has a couple of guys here. He's going to get a card from Ray plus taking any card he wants. Relentless Pursuit's another good card we sometimes see in invasion decks. Wounded Warrior's another one that's also pretty handy as a cool little key interrupt. Doesn't get seen in a lot of decks, but it has a pretty good home in invasion. Lisa Serlin. Alright, so we dropped What Chance Do We Have? This is the effect that was came out in set 6. It was the earlier design version to curb damage from things like occupation, TTO, that kind of stuff. A lot of them have more specific things. The Escape Pod We're Doomed combo came out shortly after this. And then now we even have more specific target cards, the relatively unprotected, which curbs TTO damage and carbon freezing. Um, so this one requires you to occupy more, unless they occupy more battlegrounds than you, which in a QMC deck seems unlikely. You're going to have 3 or 4 battlegrounds. You can reduce the force loss from a lot of different things down to 1. Um, the ping is still going to be 1 because he's only pinging for 1 right now. So this is a card that doesn't really need to come out yet. Probably just keep this in his hand or possibly lose it to a force drain or something. I'm assuming he's just trying to be proactive and get it on the table so when its effect is needed, it'll already be in play. But that could potentially be a card that you could lose later, save for a force drain or something. Because as your opponent this isn't doing anything right now. It's capping a limit of 1 on a damage that's already only 1. So. And then Siegs is just going to draw a bunch of cards. Now he's got Lisa hanging out at the docking bay by herself. Interesting thing about the Cloud City docking bay, it's exterior only. And Path of Least Resistance, which is one of the other escape cards that we see more often in QMC, only relocates between interior Cloud City sites. Or, I'm sorry, interior mobile locations. You can also use it on the Death Star or the Blockade flagship. But yeah, so Lisa about here. Now he did alter the blast door controls, so barrier does come back into play. Also has the ability, because she's a lone character, he could dodge to move away as well. But being out here at an exterior only, you cannot play Path of Least Resistance. So that should certainly be something to keep in mind if you're thinking about deploying and battling her. What interrupts can my opponent have to use? And like I said earlier at the beginning of the game, he left himself 9 force because he didn't need to draw any more cards because he can just keeping and go get whatever card he wants. He also has the ability to use Ray to get cards into his hand as well. So that certainly gives him the ability to leave piles of force. And when you, wow, that's a lot of 6s floating in that reserve deck. And when you leave piles of force like this, that makes your opponent and you can activate a bunch too. Makes your opponent really question how much they want to come interact with you. Now we'll see some characters move around. Looks like he's going to move most, if not everybody. He's going to leave Sidious alone and then draw a few. Looked like he had 6 guns in his reserve deck, so 6 out of 13 cards in there are 8s. Those are some pretty good odds. And I picked up the point man, so now he can go dig and find whatever card he wants, which his opponent does finally grab. Yeah, in a deck like QMC, we're not going to have a lot of weapons. Switch Off isn't a card you necessarily need to grab because it's probably never going to get played. There They Are is the other one that lets, it's a used 5, lets Darkside get droids out of their deck. That's usually a pretty good one to grab in this particular matchup. So here's his Blockade Bridge, which he's been avoided. Not getting Destiny. Here's the There They Are that I was talking about. So non-uniques are power +1 for remainder of battle. It's just the other function of it. Most people use it for this. They take a non-unique droid or droid starfighter into hand from reserve deck, so it helps you get your droids into your hand, plus it's a used 5 that then goes back. Pretty good way to circle stuff around. He's got Sonic as well. I guess he's playing the Cloud City Prison as his other locations, extra 2-0s. I don't always, I mean, you need the activation. I don't always necessarily like floating those. I'd probably be more likely to play one of them and then just play an extra Naboo site. I believe in my invasion deck, I think I played the Courtyard because that's the other one that you can convert from WAP. So you convert 2 of their locations, you convert their throne room, and then you convert their Courtyard. So you take their 2-1s, turn them into 1-2s. Kind of really can hamstring their activation, especially if they flip. Because invasion versus WAP is always a very difficult matchup. Because once they flip, it's very hard for you because all your destinies are higher than 3 and they're just canceling all of them. Justice can help with that a little bit too, because then they can't modify or cancel the draws. So looking at this, yeah, you might want to take this just to get the 0 out of your deck before you draw it. P59 is also a really good choice here. I don't think he's got too many droids left in the deck that he would need to pull her for, and he already has a Gick. So that's what I would go with. He's going to take P59. Then he can go ahead and draw a couple extra cards to see if he can find the site to get the stupid 0 out of the deck. That's going to be the bottom card now, right? Well, he's just going to give up and stop drawing there. He activates everything. He's going to Jedi Lev to get Obi back. He top decks the front of his force pile and gets rid of the bridge site. Okay. So he's got drains a 1 and 1. Plus, then his opponent is going to use Lisub's text. Now, what does Lisub do? You might wonder. During your control phase, use a force to name a card type. Reveal top card of opponent's reserve deck. If that card matches the named card type, it is lost. So card type is very specific. Things like, device, weapon, interrupt, effect. It's the icon in the top left corner, droid. So it's not character, it's droid. It's Imperial. It's Dark Jedi Master. Um, so if you guess right, they lose the card. If you guess wrong, you can either put it back or you can put it in their use pile. So it also helps you avoid a high destiny. He's going to guess Lisub. He said weapon. Smart choice because he knew there were 6 of them floating in there. It was not, which means he's just accelerated. Oh, he lost Celebration earlier, so now he's going to use Obi to get it back. Using the 2-card exchange, he throws away Yakshit and Boshek. And now we'll see Secret Plans come out. Code Clearance is also a decent shield, so that when they do stuff like Jedi Lev, it then reduces their celebration potential. So he's got Obi out there for backup. Pusimer, however you want to pronounce his name, is now at the 1-0. Not really a lot of spies in this deck. I think Afra is about the only one usually you see. Or that you can see, because this one you may not deploy cards with ability, so you could play U3PO, I guess. He could be floating around in there. But Afra's probably the one you're most likely to see, and she can go here. But he did verify his hand earlier, and he hasn't drawn too many cards. So the chances of, I think he drew Afra for Destiny too not too long ago. So the chances of him having her back are fairly slim. So he causes 3 force loss to his opponent. And in turn, he's going to retrieve 2 cards next turn with Celebration. There is a 0 floating around in that deck. There's a barrier on P59. And he will grab that. Okay. And now somebody should get a gun as well. It's still worth battling here. You're drawing 2 Destiny. You've got a gun to shoot somebody. The other thing you could do in this particular instance, if you're worried about Lobot pulling a character for free as a react, well, pulls Lando for free as a react, or possibly another alien. Well, he doesn't have any force left, so it wouldn't be another alien. It would be Lando for free. If you're worried about Lando, you could also pull the Imperial Detention Shield, which says that for your opponent to deploy a card for free, they have to first use 2 force, which they would not have. So if you were worried about him deploying Lando as a react, I don't know which Lando you might see in this deck. You've got the Lando who's got a gun and adds a Destiny. He's pretty good. Most times, though, it's the Lando Virtual who cancels game text of Dark Jedi and things like that, but there are none at the site. So it would just be a little extra more power and forfeit. I don't know if that's quite worth a shield pull in this situation. I guess it would depend on whether or not he's also running cold feats and things to get extra shields. That is Dauphine. Yeah. Yeah, Mike. Yeah, normally Teihao. Well, ideally you'd like to have both of them. Teihao's over here. Teihao is stuck on Justice. I guess he was expecting that he would get Teihao later. I mean, you can pull Dauphine early to do the redraws, and then Sidious gets you a Nemoidian, so Sidious can get you Teihao later. Um, by the time they get set up at the system and things like that, you could get Teihao out. Ideally, you'd want them both on the ship. But Teihao got stuck on Justice, and surprisingly enough, it's not been a card he's picked up yet. When he picked up a card earlier, he took a different droid. He took, I forget which droid he took, but he took one of the other droids. So we're going to get a battle. He's going to reduce Rey's defense value. Actually, this guy doesn't have to be during battle. He's just once per turn. So if you want to do something like, well, I don't think any of these guys can play Force Lightning, but I don't know, something else that targeted defense value. Tanks, you want to trample people, he could do it outside of battle. He tried to deploy an alien as a react and missed, so no Lando available. Maybe Lando died already. Maybe Lando was that 1 force he used for the barrier. Now he'll shoot Rey. He should hit her easily. He's going to use Luke and redraw it. still hits. And then he's going to play Rescue in the Clouds to cancel it. So, Rescue in the Clouds is a very annoying card against to play against when you're on QM, playing against Cloud City. Most people do it for this peak text or the lost cancel close call text, but there is this third text right here smack in the middle. Cancel a just drawn destiny targeting the ability or defense value of your non-undercover character of ability less than 5 at a system or mobile location. System being for things like set for stun, mobile location being anywhere on Cloud City or the Death Star or the blockade flagship sites. So Ray is going to be safe. Weapon Destiny is going to get canceled. So he forced him to redraw it with Luke, taking one extra card out of his reserve deck. He does still get the 2 draws here. He picks up Taehao finally. And unluckily draws that 0, which I guess is kind of what his opponent was hoping. Maybe he would draw the 0 for the Weapon Destiny, and then he could save the Rescue. Or possibly, he forced him into doing it, getting closer to that 0 and improving the chances that it would come up. And his total battle destiny here is 5, which is what Lobot's going to cover. I'm sure one of these droids adds something. I think it's this guy. Well, with another battle droid, adds 1 to your total. Yeah, it's the officer. So, and they draw leadership, which becomes a 5 as well. So Lobot dies. 9 goes to the racks. One of these, he's going to lose the gun. Okay. Because he's going to get P59 back. So making someone minus and then P59 shooting could certainly work as well. And he'll save those remaining force. Light side's getting pretty low on force here, but they're still going to hang around, and now when they're going to start with the retrieval. They picked up the cards they wanted. They're going to bounce Luke over with the path, which goes to the lost pile, but now it lets them occupy an extra battleground. So now they can retrieve 1 more card, so really they're just going to get that card back. And then you get the drains, which are +1, so this became a drain of 1. This became a drain of 2 at the docking bay, so it causes 3 force loss, +1 more at the system. And then we'll see the celebration retrieve 1, 2, and 3 because it retrieves for battlegrounds. And then he'll also be able to, he guessed droid, but it was the location again. I guess if he had been tracking what his opponent lost, he would have known what that card was. And now we'll get Jin as an undercover spy, blocking the drain. Yeah, usually QMC wants to control this particular site here, because this is the one that lets them cancel drains at other locations. Or they've got Leia or something out that also helps them cancel some drains. But she died earlier, and she's kind of buried here. It's going to take a little while to retrieve back to that. Darkseid is going to keep just plugging away. But unfortunately, they're at the point where they're not causing quite enough damage now. They're only doing the 1 ping turn. And then plus they can pay and drain for 1. So they're doing 2 damage a turn, which gets retrieved by the 2 celebration. I can drain over here too, so it's 1, 2, and then ping for 1 more. So now they're going to go ahead and flip. And we'll see and Taehao go down here. He just needed the Nemoidian at the, because that's how the objective flips. If you control Theed Palace Throne Room with a Nemoidian and the system. So now that he's flipped, he gets a bunch of cool benefits. We don't really see the flip side of this objective much. I looked at it earlier. It talked about the drawing 2 cards with different titles. If you have drawn 2 Battle Destiny text. It also has permanent resistance, so you don't lose more than 2 force to any force drain, regardless of the number of battlegrounds you occupy. Your battle droids all deploy a -1. Um, Starfighters are immune to less than 3. Who cares? But this is the big one. If opponent just drew an interrupt for Battle Destiny once per battle, you can place that card out of play. That's once per battle. Place an interrupt they drew for Battle Destiny out of play. This part here comes in handy against lots of light side mains decks because they all draw all those Whis and other Destiny 5 interrupts that they just keep cycling back, rescuing the clouds, that kind of stuff. They just keep looping back in their deck. When they start drawing them for Destiny once per battle, you just start throwing them all out of play. It does help a little bit against QMC as well because then those are cards they can't retrieve. So that can help too. He verifies it's a 3. Let's see if he shuffles some people around. Yep. I'll do a little shuffle. P59 moves in front of Jin. He'll bring the other droid over as well. That'll help set up the sniper. P59 picking off Jin with the sniper is what that will be. I don't believe this droid here will be able to target her to reduce her defense value. Because she's not present when she's undercover. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. Some of these keyword rulings get a little tricky. This also certainly changes things a bit for the tempo of the game. Now they can drain at Naboo. Now they can drain at the throne room, so there's extra damage potential, and they're not having to pay for it anymore as well. So he is going to path over again before he does his retrieval. It's not quite getting him anywhere, though, by doing that, because he's losing a card to then pay 1 more to retrieve. He's putting a card out of his hand back into his deck, but I'm guessing the path is the card he keeps taking with keeping the Empire out, so he could just pick a different card. There's launching the assault, which may be too little too late. Oh, nope. Now we've got Akbar. Did he pick at the home one? Yep, there's the home one. Okay. Akbar moves up. See if Luke's going to stay there now and block the drain. He's going to move Rey over too now. Okay. Now he's going to stay put. So now it makes a little more sense. And now he'll move Lisa and friends away from that big party. It's a fairly close game still. Fairly close game. Uh-oh. They did a revert, and that broke the replay link. I hate when that happens. So we will not get to find out the exciting conclusion of this game and how it ends, but we did get to learn quite a few of the interesting mechanics of Invasion and Quiet Mining Colony for that matter. So thanks to Tarelion for sharing that. Um, I'll put that disclaimer out there. I appreciate you guys sending me links. I try not to preview them ahead of times. That way you get more of my natural reactions when I see people do strange things. Apparently some of you guys really like that. Um, so I would ask you, before you send me a link, if you had reverts during your game, just go ahead and take a peek and kind of fast forward through your game and make sure it gets all the way to the end. And then we can see the exciting conclusion of what happened there. So that's a bummer. So that will conclude our game review. See if there's anything else. Just a bunch of open games going on. Stevie gets All Stars, KTOD Showdown. It's good to see those guys back playing on GEMP. They've both been taking some time off, so nice to see they're using their summers productively. So, there was a question posed earlier. This is what we'll end the show on tonight. European Championship. People are talking about what decks I expect that I will see. And I posted earlier, people are talking about what dark side decks. They're saying ROPS, Map, Hunt Down. Those certainly seem like the three front runners in terms of dark side decks. They also seem to fit a lot of the European playstyle. Um, so a couple of the Euros really do like my kind of scum, so I would be surprised to see that being played. These will very likely be the top three. Um, you could see some other types like Imperial Entanglements, especially the new version with the Death Star reactor thing that lets you pull the deflector shield generators and kind of start fishing for more cards through your deck. It's become a little bit more, even more of a control deck than it had been previously. Um, you might see a Scum deck or two, a Black Sun deck or two. People seem to be that they, why can I not think? I think this is Casper. I was talking, yeah, Casper. I was talking about he's really struggling to find anything that he likes that works. I posed out there like, how about Watto, EOPS, TTO, IE, Senate, Black Sun. I think any of these decks, you're gonna have 25 people at this tournament. I think you'll probably see, 4 or 5 ROPS, 2 or 3 map, 3 to 4 hunt down. Um, and then I think you're going to see a bunch of one-offs. You'll see, 1 or 2 Wattas, 1 or 2 Senates, um, maybe like a dark side combat, something kind of goofy there. As for light side decks, Old Allies seems to be the one that I think would be near the top of the list. Diplo would also probably be up there. Typically, when we see European tournaments, the Throne Room Hitco 5 Jedi Luke decks that American players really seem to love and favor, we don't see from a lot of the European lists generally. I don't know if that's just a play style preference, if that's a card availability preference. I don't know if there's just a shortage of Jedi Lukes in Europe, and they don't all play those decks, or they just consider them to be too boring. Um, so they play a bit more diverse. So I think we could certainly see Diplo being a very popular light side deck, Old Allies also being there. They tend to favor more of those control-oriented lateral decks, QMC being a popular one as well, out of the Europe meta. Yeah, you might still see 1 or 2 guys playing Throne Room or Hitco, um, but I don't think you'll see, like, if there's 25 players in the field, I don't think you'll see 12 Throne Room Hitco decks out of the field. I think you'll see a lot more diverse options, and I'm sure you'll see a few surprises. You might see some type of goofy profit deck or hyperdrive. You might see someone playing something like that, or WAP. Um, those guys have they've always pushed the limits and experimented with the fringe decks and trying to find ways to win games that way and catch people off guard with goofy shenanigans and stuff. And we see a lot of interesting stuff come out of there. And for those guys, it works, and it works in very specific matchups. And for other people, they look at it and go, I don't know how did this person, go 6-2 on the day one, going 4-0 on day one, winning all 4 games with this deck. I can't even win one game with it. I don't, it just takes a very particular mindset sometimes, and also the right favorable matchups. If you're playing some type of hyperdrive deck, um, and you play it against scum decks or something like that, it might be a lot more interactive. Black Sun, that kind of thing. Maybe that's a bit more competitive. Probably not. Maybe that's a bit more of an interesting game. If you're playing, against the typical hunt down meta, well, you know, the mains meta that we have in North America mostly, Ralops, those things might just get steamrolled right by. So, uh, different areas have different play styles, different preferences, and you always have to take that into consideration when you're looking at deck lists from other places. Just because a deck did really well and won an event for somebody doesn't mean it's going to be good for somebody else. So you have to find what your style is, and then take into account what the people you play against on a regular basis, what their styles are too. So hope that answered your question, Mike. Thank you guys all very much for tuning in this evening. Be sure and renew your subscriptions if you haven't already. And we will see you back here next Monday night. And hopefully, we will have the remainder of the set 11 spoiler list then for us to discuss. Until then, keep playing your OCS games, keep sending over some game links, and just keep playing Star Wars. You guys have a great night.